Hi everyone, thanks for joining in. I'm excited to have Gillian Harvey joining me. Hi Gillian.
Hi, hope you're well.
Thank you. For those who don't know, Gillian is one of our associated authors and has been in our group for a while and been author for the day and done interviews with me before. So great to have you back again.
Lovely to be here.
So Gillian's a freelance writer and author, and she lives in France with her husband Ray and their five children. She regularly pens articles and short stories for UK magazines, including Women's Weekly and People's Friend. She also writes opinion pieces and has been published in Independent, Guardian, Metro, and Gillian started in her career in the teaching profession, working as a secondary school teacher. After moving to France in 2009, she started freelance writing for publications in the UK, France, and the US. And Gillian has written a monthly column in Writing magazine since 2020. She has previously been columnist for Prima Baby and Living France magazines, and her first novel was Everything is Fine, which was published in May 2020. Her second novel was Perfect on Paper, which was published in 2021, and she has since moved to Boldwood Books, where she's published the best-selling A Year at the French Farmhouse and most recently One French Summer. And her forthcoming novel is out in July, and it's A Month in Provence. So I just thought we're already in July, so your
Yeah,
next
it's
book
next
must,
Tuesday.
yeah, it must be just about out. And I wanted to share as well. I've got my copy here of One French Summer. I'm not
Oh
sure
yeah.
if you saw, but I gave it 5 star when I put my reads up for June. And
Oh,
One
wonderful.
French
Thank you.
Summer was one of my 5 star reads. I really, really loved it.
Oh, thank you. It's lovely to know.
Do you want to tell us a bit about One French Summer?
Absolutely. Okay, so it's all about Katie, who she's kind of stuck in a bit of a rut. She doesn't fully know that she is. Her husband's asked for a trial separation, and she's fairly optimistic about their chances of getting back together. Not everything goes as planned, but she's got these great friends, Vicky, Sam, and Ivy, who whisk her away to France for a retreat. And during that time, it goes beyond the normal, just rediscovering a bit about art and having a break. And all of the characters really learn a lot about themselves. Um, Katie perhaps has a little bit more to learn
Mm,
because she makes a little bit of a faux pas later in the book, but by the end of the book, she's really trusting in herself again and feeling that she's got a really good positive future. She's no longer a kind of uh, I don't know quite how to put it, but she was very much trusting in other people's opinion of her rather than sort of her own. And
mm,
she grows in confidence and really begins to seize life in a brand new way by the end.
mm. And I loved the setting.
Yeah, no, so it's a kind of fictional town based on one that I have been to, and it's fairly near to Bordeaux and also the coast, Biscarrosse, the beach there. And it's just an absolutely, I've been on holiday to that area a few times. We're more central in France, so we're
Mm,
the lakes and that sort of thing. But
mm,
we've headed south a few times as a family, and it's just beautiful there. Obviously, we've got there's nothing quite like proper real beach seas. We have a lot of lake beaches here,
mm,
but something wonderful about the sea.
mm,
And this little town is just an archetypal French town where you've got the stone buildings and the little cafes and the sense of community that I've found in most of the places that I've visited
yeah.
since I've lived in France. So
Mm,
really kind of welcomes everyone in.
mm, mm. And I haven't read A Year at the French Farmhouse, but I'm excited that my other book club that I actually go to in-person meetups has actually chosen that as their read for this month. So I'm excited to
Oh,
be
how
reading
lovely.
that. I was wondering, is it similar? Has it got same characters or not? Is it a totally?
No, it's a different story entirely, but it's still got that kind of feel good element.
Yeah.
It's quite emotive. So it was the first book I've written, sorry, set in France, and my previous two books with Orion were more kind of modern contemporary humorous books. This is one set in France, and I kind of held off, even though I live in France. I didn't want to just set something in France for the sake of it. I was waiting for the right idea, and I wanted to find something quite some unusual reason for someone to end up in France. And I had the idea of someone accidentally buying a property on eBay, but then deciding, no, do you know what? I'm going to follow it through. So
Yeah.
this is what happens to Lily. She kind of has this moment where everything she's worked for falls apart a little bit, but she's not that bothered about it, because she's thinking, hang on a minute. My husband and I, we've been talking about moving to France for years. Maybe this is our moment, but it doesn't quite work out as planned, as often these things do in books. But she decides to go it alone, and she really meets some very interesting characters. There's a little kind of play with cliche, both of the French character and the British there as well. And you've got her kind of adjusting to life and learning about how to see things in a different way. But I won't give any spoilers if you're about to read it.
Yeah, no, I'll be looking forward to reading that one. And can you tell us about your new one that you said is out next week?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this one. So it's all about yet another woman in her 40s, but she's basically Nikki. She's been bereaved, but 10 years ago, of her husband, and had to really give up on her dreams to raise their daughters. As soon as this thing happened, her daughters were kind of 10 and 12, and she was like, right, everything goes into them. I don't want this to ruin their lives. But now her daughters are really thriving. They're in their 20s, and she's sort of still doing this job that she didn't love, but she was doing just to give stability. She doesn't realise she's happy enough. But then her friend Jenny has done everything that she said she was going to do in her career, and she's now this TV executive, and she persuades her to take part in a reality program in France, where it's a bit like the there's various programs obviously where you redesign businesses and that kind of thing. So it's called the Big B&B Makeover, and Nikki's takes the place of someone who's had to drop out, and is there to advise this B&B owner and try and change his fortunes. And there's some kind of funny TV presenter and team members and things that are there too. And I had real fun writing this one, because there's a lot of funny things about reality TV. We know a lot of it is staged. We know that sometimes they like to go a bit left field with the contestants and surprise them. So she really has to learn to roll with the punches, and in doing so, she taps into some stuff in herself that's been dormant for a long time, and that she hadn't even really remembered. Things she'd sort of frozen really when her husband died, and she had to kind of be both parents for her kids. So it's quite emotive, but it's also, I hope, quite humorous, and obviously lots of gorgeous Provence in there as well. So something for everyone, hopefully.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great one as well. I'm wondering as well, like, have you thought, like, in from reading One French Summer, I really, really loved Katie. Have you thought about writing books with the same characters? Because I'm sure a lot of people wonder what's happened to Katie now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the moment I'm contracted to write these standalone novels, but I'm looking into hopefully starting a series later next year, where I can really watch people evolve within that new environment. So I think that would be a really great way to go for maybe picking up some of these characters into it as well. So I'd love to revisit them. And I do, it's odd, because you kind of, as a writer, you spend a lot of time with the characters, and you do sometimes find yourself thinking about them, thinking, what they'd be doing, or what would happen next. So yeah, that's something that I'd love to do in the future.
And we've got a few people watching, so just wanted to remind the people watching, if you've got any questions for Gillian, please type them in comments and I can read them out. I've got a question from Sharon. She wonders how you choose your characters' names.
That is actually a bit of a struggle for me, because I find I write short stories as well, and sometimes I'm thinking, oh no, I've used that name before, and I have to really. So what I tend to do is I think about roughly the era that the character was born, and I look up popular names for that year to try and give it that authenticity as well. And but it's something I really need. I know a lot of authors. Now I'm on this contract where I'm producing 2 or 3 books a year. I definitely need to do something about a spreadsheet where I record who I've used already, because I don't know what it is. Your brain has this fondness for certain names, and they're not even names that I necessarily know people in real life with. They just seem to come back. So I'm going to have to really pin that down as I start to write more books. It's funny, and I think you get a sense of what you want a character to be like, and so you look at lists of names, you think, no way, they're not a Ruth, they're not this, they're not that, and other names pop out, and you think, yeah, that suits them. But yeah, it's mostly Googling, it's mostly looking at names that spring out from those lists. But yeah, I need to get myself organised so I don't repeat myself too much.
I actually spoke to one author once who employed someone to keep track of all their characters, and that was their job.
Oh, what a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because I had to, I always remember the story and how it feels, and the main character's name. But even before this interview, I kind of jotted down quickly all the names just in case, because they get mixed up sometimes.
And you mentioned like about writing 2 or 3 books a year. Just wondering how you go. Like you've got 5 children and writing all these books. How do you set out your time? Do you make sure you have a certain amount of time a day or a week or?
Yeah, I tend to, once I found, I mean, when I wrote my first book, and the first one that got published, and you're not as disciplined because you don't really know if anyone's ever going to read it, or if anyone's going to want it. So you don't have this deadline. And I used to find that I would write enthusiastically for a few days, and then I'd leave it. Then I'd have to read back and get back into it. And I found that when I'm actually writing something that someone is going to want to read, that my editor's waiting for, that I have to write every day. And I aim to try and do a chapter a day when I'm writing. So sometimes, like, I've just started writing another book in the last couple of days, and it's taken me a long time to really go from having the idea and mapping it out to plunging in. And I think it's because I know that once I'm doing it, it's all or nothing. I have to do a chapter a day, fit it in. I find that if I get up early, not crazy early, but I tend to do my best work sort of 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, and just get it done and revisit it maybe later to have a little read through. My kids are going to be on summer holidays from Friday, but now they're that little bit bigger, they're sort of, the eldest is 13, I've got twin boys 11, and a girl of 9, nearly 10, and a boy of 8, but they're not so up and at them in the morning these days. They don't mind mulching around and having a bit of telly and eating the breakfast slowly. So I use that time, that kind of slow morning time, and then afterwards I can be a bit more free and do things with them. So that's how it's worked out at the moment. But it would be nice to have a bit more time, and I would love to one day go on writing retreats and do the whole kind of immersive thing, but it's just not viable for me right now.
And as your children have grown up, have you written stories for them?
No, I am toying with the idea. I would like to write a children's book one day, and I read a lot of children's books because I made a kind of promise to me and my husband, sort of said, what other balls we drop, when we drop loads, because 5 children, you just do, we will always read to them in the evening. And so we have read a lot of children's books between us, and so I'd like to think one day I could write for them, or for who they are now and children in the future. But at the moment, I do find little interactions come into my novels that maybe, if a character is a parent, it's useful research, living my life and just being with my kids, because things happen that are funny or difficult, and it naturally feeds in it, even if it's just the feeling that I get from it. But so far, I haven't written anything for them specifically.
And I wanted to share the cover of your book. I can see you've got some of them on the back there of your wall. But what a beautiful cover all of your books have.
Yeah, I think Boldwood, they really do commission excellent covers. And someone once asked me, if you have any issues with the cover, are they receptive and that sort of thing? And I've never had any issues, so I don't know. But they do seem to have a great eye. And it was interesting because when I saw the one for the Year at the French Farmhouse, I just thought, it's often here. I love the way that the cover design has been commissioned, and you can see that Lily it's not sort of whimsical. She looks very determined. It encapsulates her character. And A Month in Provence, which I don't have a copy of yet, but that's again, I'm just so happy with the covers. And I do think it does make a huge difference if you can really give the reader a sense of a book in a cover. Then you're going to find the right readers for your books. So yeah, it's a real forte of Boldwood, I think, to get those covers spot on.
Yeah. And are there any other languages your books has it been written in French? Or?
One of my books, so all my books are kind of out on sub in foreign rights, and we live in hope. But my book, Perfect on Paper, that I wrote with Orion, has recently been published in French, which is wonderful for me, obviously, because I live in France, so I could at last see my book when I go around the supermarket and that kind of thing. And it's just been published in Czech as well, which
really?
It's just amazing to me, because Perfect on Paper was about a woman who was feeling very invisible, but ends up somehow, through various twists of fate, she wants to showcase her poetry. She ends up becoming a kind of alter ego rap star. So there's raps in there, and it amazes me that someone's had to translate those into French and Czech, how that must have worked. But yeah, it's amazing when that happens. And I do hope that will come along for these other books as well. It takes time sometimes.
Yeah. And Wendy, she says she's been suggesting that if our family want a July holiday again, we're going to go to France, but she doesn't think she's been taken seriously yet. She's in cold Australia, she said. And I was interested
well, yeah, it's a lovely place to go.
I was interested to see that Katie's daughter was living in Australia in your book. Have you visited Australia before?
No, I'd love to. My husband's got a grown-up son, and he lives in Australia now, and it's on the cards at some point. It's one of those we struggle to get back to the UK to see family at the moment with the 5 of them. So, but as they're growing, they're becoming more portable. There was a time when we could barely leave the house when they were all 6 and under, but now, so yeah, in future years, I'd love to do that. It'd be wonderful.
Yeah, you'll have to find a good babysitter and go on a holiday by yourselves.
Definitely, that would be the dream. We haven't found anyone we think could cope yet, unfortunately. But
so could you tell me a bit about what you like reading yourself? Is there anything you might have been reading lately that you want to recommend to us?
Yeah, I've listened to a lot of audiobooks because working with a screen a lot, and then reading books, sometimes reading proofs and things like that. It means that I'm tired, and so but I love listening to audiobooks because I can listen to it in the car. And a recent one I loved was The Amazing Grace Adams. I can't remember the author for that. She was a Fran Littlewood, maybe. She really encapsulated this great kind of journey of this woman. It's sort of comedy, but also tragedy at the same time. And I was really hooked with that one. I think when I identify with a character a bit, that's really what draws me in a lot. I read a book. As a writer, you sometimes have to read, not have to, but you find yourself reading other authors' books. And I always find that quite daunting, as in they've asked you to read them, sorry, because every book's got an author, obviously. But I find it daunting because I think, oh, what if I don't like it? And I read this book, The Trick by Rebecca Lee, recently, and took me ages to kind of start. And then, oh my God, I just gobbled it up. It was just amazing. And so I was really transported to Marrakesh, and there's these lifelong friends who've come together for a holiday there. And there's this kind of mystery in the past. And it was just amazing. So going from sort of being nervous and thinking, oh, I hope I like it, to wow, that's always brilliant. But I suppose I love contemporary. I tend to like contemporary books. I like books that have emotional depth to them. And I have got a weird kind of fondness for books that have a bit of time slip or time travel in them as well. Traveler's Wife was one of my all-time favourites.
One of mine too.
That kind of yeah. So it really varies, but I'll sometimes really seize on a book. Most recent, I've read one that's not out yet, called Swimming for Beginners by Nicola Gill, and that's all about a character who is very much, it's a little bit set in her way. She's in her 30s, and she's not very good socially, and everything's about her career, and she kind of has this experience which changes everything, and that's one that's going to stay with me for a while, I think, as well.
And if you could be a character from any of your books for a day, who would you be and why?
Oh, wow, okay. Well, I suppose if it was just for a day, I would probably, I think there's a great character in A Year at the French Farmhouse called Chloe, and she's just about as chic a French woman as you can imagine, and she just kind of always dressed immaculately and seems to sort of keeps this wonderful home and cooks wonderful dishes, and I don't think I could maintain that for more than a day, but it'd be interesting to find out what it's like to be someone like that. So I guess I'd try her on for size.
Yeah. And Kim wonders if there's any authors who've inspired you.
Definitely. I think one of the first books that really inspired me in terms of not wanting to be a writer, because that's something that I feel I always had. I've always wanted that, but made me realise the type of book I'd love to be able to write was when I was reading, good 20 odd years ago now, Tony Parsons' Man and Boy series, and he's got this. It was like seeing that you could have a humorous novel which also meant something as well. It wasn't just frivolous. It had depth to it. You could cry with the characters as well as laugh at them and with them. And him and Nick Hornby novels have that similar vibe. Sue Townsend, I just adore, and obviously it's a shame she's not not with us to write more. Her grown up Adrian Mole books, if you've not read those, they're just it's this writing one thing and the reader sees a whole different thing, and that's so incredibly clever. So various authors, and Joanna Trollope as well. I always read her. She's an auto-bi author for me as well. Because she writes about really, really ordinary life, but the kind of extraordinary nature of that and the twists and turns that just happen every day. And so all of that together, I think those writers really, they have shown me ways that I can go with my own writing and ways I aspire to go in my own writing as well.
And what have you got coming up for promoting A Month in Provence?
There's a few bits and pieces going on. There's a French France magazine, I think, are running a competition, and a couple of short stories going into women's magazines and that sort of thing. And then just various, a blog tour I think is coming up soon as well. So it's all going. I've got to make a video for my publisher later as well, which is
nice.
something I've put off to the last minute, as I often do, but I'll try and get that done today. So bits and pieces, and just hoping then that readers pick it up and it goes forth and people recommend it to each other.
Well, thanks so much for chatting with me. Like I said before, I totally loved One French Summer. So if people watching haven't read any of your books before, I totally recommend they go out and read your books. And I'm looking forward to reading more of your books as well.
Oh, it's lovely. Thanks ever so much for having me. And sorry about the one that had to be postponed because of the whole thunderstorm business. But I really appreciate that you've given me another chance with that as well.
We've gone.
Sorry that I messed you about.
No, that's all good. We've gone good this time. Thank you, and thanks for everyone who joined in with questions.
Yeah, thanks everyone for coming along.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.